Rivers, waterfalls, and waves. The possibilities are endless when it comes to photographing water in motion. Yet, how do the pros make the pictures look so perfect? Today, I'll show you how to work with your camera's shutter speed to stop the action or give the water a sense of movement. Then I'll show you how to use the computer to perfect the images you took in the field. Dive into taking photographs of water in motion next on The Whole Picture. Welcome to The Whole Picture. I'm Erin Manning. You know, think about all the possibilities there are when you're shooting a subject like water. With rivers, lakes, streams, the seashore, if you take into consideration that water covers about 70% of the Earth's surface, you'll begin to see the endless options. Now, shooting moving water can be a lot of fun because just adjusting your camera settings, you can create some really cool effects with the water. Now, along with all those photo opportunities are also some challenges, but we'll get into all of that in today's lesson. First, let me show you some pictures I took illustrating water in motion. Now, this first photograph at the beach, I really wanted to capture the motion of the wave as it came up on the sand. So I used a slow shutter speed, and that way the motion created a blur, giving me kind of an ethereal effect. On this next photograph, I wanted to capture the detail of the wave and really stop it in action. So I used a fast shutter speed. Now, I have a student by the name of Laura, and she has a fantastic backyard with all kinds of water elements, waterfalls. She emailed me this photograph the other day, and you can see she's having a few problems. We have a lot of reflection going on, and it's just way overexposed. But that's okay. After today's lessons, she'll be able to take great photographs too. So today, I'm going to head over to Laura's backyard and go over all the lessons. Now, here's what you'll be learning today. The first thing I'll teach you is how to adjust the shutter speed on your camera to create some really cool effects with the water. Next, I'll show you how composition and the techniques you learn will really bring all your water elements to life. Then I'll show you how using filters can cut down on the amount of light hitting your lens. And finally, we'll come back here to the studio and I'll show you how to enhance your photographs on the computer and make them even better. Now, I talked about filters earlier. Let me show you the ones we'll be using in today's lessons. This is a neutral density filter. Now, it's darker, so it's going to reduce the amount of light hitting your lens. This is a great filter to use when it's a bright day and you want to open up your aperture or slow down your shutter speed, both of which we'll be doing. Now, this is a polarizing filter. It's a circular polarizing filter, so you can adjust it any way you want. It's darker, so it's going to reduce the amount of light hitting your lens, but it has an added feature. It also reduces the glare coming off of reflective surfaces. We're going to be shooting a lot of water, and that has a lot of reflective surfaces, so this is a great filter to use. Now, it will also boost your color saturation and darken your blue skies, so it's a great filter to have. But let's say you're outside and you don't have a polarizing filter with you. You've got your point-and-shoot camera and a pair of polarizing sunglasses. Just put these in front of your camera's lens and it works just as well. Now, while I'm heading over to Laura's, go ahead and take a look at some of my other photographs I've taken illustrating water in motion. Next, I'll meet up with Laura in her gorgeous backyard water garden. We'll slow things down a bit to turn her waterfall into a beautiful piece of art. Coming up on The Whole Picture. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. Water is everywhere in nature, but why is it such a challenge to capture its beauty in a photograph? I'm headed over to my student Laura Pier's house to teach her how to take photographs of water in motion in her amazing backyard water garden. Hey Laura, how you doing?
Hi Erin, great, how are you?
Wonderful. I love your place here.
Thank you, we've worked hard.
I think it'll be great for taking pictures.
Good.
And speaking of pictures, I took a look at your picture back at the studio.
Okay.
I think I know just what we need to do today.
Okay.
Let's start our first lesson by learning about creating cool effects with water.
Okay.
Just by adjusting the shutter speed on your camera.
All right.
All right, that's a great camera too.
Thank you, I just got it.
Very nice, but no matter what camera you have, the same photographic principles are still going to apply.
Okay.
All right? Let's start with using a fast shutter speed.
Okay.
And a fast shutter speed is typically, say, 250th of a second or higher. And by using a fast shutter speed, it will capture the water in midair, freeze it right in action, so you'll see all those little droplets.
Okay, now what about if you reduce the shutter speed?
Good question. If you use a slower shutter speed, like say 30th of a second or lower, it's going to blur the action. So if the water's moving, it'll appear sort of blurry and ethereal looking.
Okay.
But whenever I shoot with a slow shutter, I like to use a tripod.
Okay.
And that way the water will be blurred, but everything else will be in sharp focus. When using your tripod, make sure it's secure. Even though tripods are steadier than humans, wind or someone walking nearby can cause the camera to slightly shake. While you may not notice it with your eyes, a slight shake will greatly affect the pictures you take at slower shutter speeds. There are a couple of tricks you can use to make sure your tripod is steady. Try hanging your camera bag off the tripod for added weight, and avoid raising that center column. This seriously increases the risk of camera shake. Also, avoid extending the legs on your tripod as far as they'll go. Digital cameras offer photographers great control over their images. One way is by changing the shutter speed. Check your owner's manual to see how to change the shutter speed on your particular camera. Play around with your shutter speed. It's fun to experiment and find which speed gives you the effect you had in mind. On most cameras, you can change the shutter speed on your camera by going into the manual mode and then adjusting it up or down. A slower shutter speed typically will be 1/30th of a second or slower. Remember, the slower the shutter speed you select, the more blur you'll get. Fast shutter speeds are considered to be 1/200th of a second and higher. The faster the shutter speed, the better chance that you'll capture the action of water freezing in midair. Control of the shutter makes it possible to capture a professional-looking picture of water in motion that really stands out. Oh, this place is full of butterflies.
Yes, it is.
So pretty. You know, another really important lesson you need to learn is about composition.
Okay, and what exactly is composition?
Good question. Well, chances are, whenever you're taking a photograph of something, you may want to include something more than just the water, right? So you have other things surrounding it that you would compose into the shot. For example, framing, okay? Surrounding this little stream here, we have rocks, trees, plants, flowers, butterflies, all kinds of things. And if we can incorporate those into the shot, pull back a little bit, they'll frame what we're actually looking at and draw your eye right to it. Just makes for a lot more interesting photograph.
Okay.
And the other thing too is point of view, or your angle on things. Don't be afraid to come up high like this and shoot down, or maybe even come through the grass and shoot this way, or move over this way a little bit. Really kind of mix it up. You don't want to get caught in a visual rut.
Right.
You have all your pictures looking the same. Mix it up a little bit. And the other thing too is change your angle. You know, you might be taking all your photographs just like this, horizontally. Try mixing it up by going vertically, and then break the rules a little bit. Do it diagonal. Maybe that looks interesting too, that way. So mix it up and have some fun. One of the things that makes photographing moving water more interesting is the contrast between the soft-spun look of the water and the harder edges of the landscape. If you're using a slower shutter speed, the area surrounding the water will remain in focus, but the water becomes blurred. It's important to look for these contrasting elements when planning your composition. Without planning, your image may look like it's just out of focus. Creating pleasing compositions can be so easy, yet very difficult at the same time. That's because it usually requires the photographer to take the time to plan before they snap the shutter and still manage to capture the moment before it's gone. Framing is a simple technique that forces you to really use your photographic eye before you take the shot. Start taking the time to think about interesting ways to frame your subject, and you'll find opportunities are everywhere. Trees, rocks, flowers, clouds, just about anything can act as your frame, and all professional photographers take the time to look for them. Another technique is to think vertically. Before you take a shot, think about how to most effectively use the space in the frame. All too often, in an effort to make a vertical subject fit into a horizontal frame, you're forced to zoom way out and make it fit, and you're left with a lot of empty space around your subject. Turning the camera vertically allows you to fill the frame with more of your subject matter, which is most important. If you think about it, waterfalls, waves, and fountains are vertically oriented, so why not photograph them that way? And don't be afraid to play with your angles. Stand on a chair or ladder, or just hold the camera up above your head to get that bird's eye view. Or shoot from down below. Get down on all fours, lie down, or crouch. Whatever you have to do to change your angle and give your lens a chance to capture something you don't normally see. For more information on working with shutter speed and composition, log on to the website at DIYnetwork.com. While you're there, take a look at some of the other pictures we took. Now that Laura has learned to use framing, it's time to put her pictures in the right light. We'll filter through the muddy waters next on The Whole Picture. Nature lovers know where to go to find the most beautiful waterfalls, creeks, and waves, but finding the best picture is a little harder. Learning to use your camera's shutter speed and mixing up your angles can help you to get higher quality water and motion photographs. Now we'll add filters to the mix to have yet another tool to get the best possible shots. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. I'm Erin Manning. Today I'm teaching Laura how to photograph water in motion. Now we're practicing in her backyard, but when we're finished today, she'll be able to take pictures of water anywhere. Now, Laura, all the things you're learning today about shutter speed and composition, etc., you'll be able to use in a lot of different venues, like sports photography if you want.
Okay.
Okay? Do you feel like you're getting a better handle now on the shutter speed and composition?
You know, Erin, I feel like I've learned so much already.
Oh, great. Now, another thing to consider, especially when you're playing around with different shutter speeds, an important element in all of this is light. Okay? Especially if you're trying to capture those crashing waves or a waterfall midday or in really bright sunlight. The shutter speed on your camera may not be able to be set to 1/30th of a second or lower, because then your picture would be overexposed. Okay? And without the slow shutter speed, you won't be able to capture the motion of that blur in the picture.
Right.
So one solution would be to shoot at dusk or dawn when the sun is lower in the sky. But there's another solution, and that is using a filter.
Oh.
This is a polarizing filter. Okay, and what it does is it cuts down on the amount of light that's hitting your lens. It also will reduce the glare or reflection off of water, along with making your blue skies bluer, and it will boost your color saturation.
Great. Now, how does this fit onto my camera?
It's really easy. You can either screw it on or snap it on, just depending on your camera, like so.
Okay.
And just think of it like a pair of sunglasses for your lens.
Great.
Actually, a pair of polarizing sunglasses will work if you're in a pinch. Simply place them in front of your lens and let them act as the polarizing filter. You can experiment with the polarizing filter to see its effect by simply holding the filter up to your eyes and twisting it. Or if you're looking at the water in a pond, the glare will disappear, exposing the rocks underneath. Also, check out neutral density filters. They work much the same way as polarizing filters, blocking a certain amount of light from entering the camera, but without altering the colors in your picture. Sometimes you can't choose a slow enough shutter speed when shooting in bright light, because the camera has a limit to the minimum size of its aperture opening. However, you can use ND filters to reduce the aperture by 1 or more f-stops. Neutral density filters come in a variety of levels. Different filter manufacturers use different ways to indicate the amount of light a neutral density filter can reduce, so check the manufacturer's information for details. Most filters attach easily to digital cameras, either by snapping or screwing on. Be careful when installing a filter because the threads on filters are thin, and if you're not gentle, you can easily strip the threads as you're putting the filter onto your camera's lens. Well, that was fun.
It was. Thanks, Erin, for all the great tips.
You're welcome. Just remember, keep practicing all those techniques. Have fun with it. Move around, change your point of view, up, down, all over the place. Have fun, and I'll see you tomorrow at the studio.
Great. See you then.
Okay. Coming up, will Laura be pleased with her progress, or are her pictures still up a creek? We'll check back in with Laura at my studio next on The Whole Picture. my studio to see your results.
Good.
I had a great time out there yesterday.
Good, I did too.
Did you take a lot more pictures?
I did. I can't wait to show you what I've done.
Good. Well, I went ahead and downloaded them on the
Oh,
computer,
good.
so let's click through and see.
Now here you can see I used a slow shutter speed.
Yes, the water's blurred.
And here it was a larger shutter speed. You can
Good
actually
job.
see the crispness of the water there.
Yeah. More blur, okay. That's very nice framing.
Thank you. Now here I used filters.
I can see, yes, the polarizing filter. We can see the rocks underneath the water.
This is one of my favorites.
That's beautiful. That looks like a painting.
Great.
Okay. Nice, slow shutter speed. But you know what? We could make this water blur even more.
Oh, okay.
Want to give it a whirl?
Sure.
Okay. Have you ever worked with an image editing program before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's okay. So we'll just stick to the basics today. We'll
Good.
work with tools and filters.
Okay.
So before we start, let's go up here to File in the menu bar, click File, Save As, and we're going to save it as a copy.
Okay.
That way we can archive the original in case anything happens.
Okay, I'm gonna save it as Laura.
That's good. Okay, click OK. Great, so we'll work with this. Now let's start having some fun. We'll come over here to the toolbar and click on the Magic Wand tool. Now this is a great tool to use if you want to select large areas of a picture of similar color. So go ahead and just click once on the water. Look out the area that it's selected. Now if I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and you keep clicking in the water, it will keep adding more of the water. You can also adjust the range of pixels that this picks up by going up here to Tolerance if you want to. Right now I think it's working pretty well. This looks good. Now let's blur it.
Okay.
Come up here to the menu bar and click on Filter, roll down to Blur, and roll over to Motion Blur. Okay. Now we have a motion blur dialog box. It gives us some options here. Let's make it a little bit smaller by clicking on the minus sign so we can really alter what we do within this window. Now, drag your cursor over, it becomes a hand. If you hold it down and drag, we can move the picture around to put it just where we want it so we can look at it. Okay, make it just a little bit smaller. And then down here, we're working with angle. The angle right now is going horizontal. That means we're going to blur things horizontally. Because the water's going up and down, let's blur it vertically.
Okay.
So just click and drag that dial and make it vertical. That looks good. Now down here, we can work with the slider and adjust just how much we want the water to blur. So
How's that?
if you brought it way over, the water blurs so much it almost disappears, right? So maybe bring it just up a little bit. That looks good. Let's click OK. Okay. Now to get rid of all these little dancing ants, we call them, just click Escape on your keyboard. Now let's do a File Save.
Okay.
And we've saved it. Okay, now let's do a File Print.
Great.
Okay, now we can see that it's going to print landscape or horizontally, so that's good. Up here, we want the print size to fit on the page and get rid of some of this border. Just scroll down to Fit on Page. Great. Now this is exactly how it's going to print out. Let's click Print and OK. And it's off to the printer.
Great.
If you'd like to learn more about shutter speeds or filters or any of the things you saw here today, just log on to our website at DIYnetwork.com. Okay, Laura, I went ahead and posted the before picture here.
Good.
Let's take a look at the final photograph.
Ooh.
Looks good. You did a nice job with composition and you were able to blur out the water a little bit more.
Good.
So, Laura, do you feel like you've learned a lot more about shutter speeds and filters and things today?
I really do. Thank you.
You did a great job. Thank you. It was nice working with you. And remember, always bring your camera with you because the more pictures you take, the better you get. I hope you'll use what you learned today and take your own great water and motion pictures. And remember, keep practicing, and pretty soon, you'll be able to take pictures just like the pros. Join me next time on The Whole Picture. Let's work on it.